Hello everybody, what's up and welcome back to my channel. Without any further ado, we'll straight away get into the video. So in this video, basically this video is for all my ICSE juniors who are going to be appearing for their ICSE 10th board examinations either next year or next to next year, or I mean if you're somebody who in future will be appearing for your ICSE 10th boards, I think this video is definitely going to help you out. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I was able to score a perfect score of 100 in my English literature, which is English 2 in my 10th grade, which apparently can help a lot of you as well, because I think when I was in 10th grade, in fact 9th and 10th grade, it had taken me really long to kind of figure it out myself, what has to be done, what doesn't have to be done, to actually be able to like follow the right things. So I thought, let's save your time and let's like share it, so that if you're somebody who's not somebody who's doing it, or somebody who has a different way, whatever, figure it out yourself, what's good for you, what's not. Straight away we'll get into the video. So let's begin. So first of all, it becomes really important for us to understand why focus on English, because it does decide a huge amount of our percentage. Because for rest of the boards, in fact I think, as much as I know, for most of the other boards we have this concept for the calculation of percentage. The best 5 will be taken into consideration, the scores of the best 5. But in the case of ICSE, it's English plus best 4. And English also, in English we have English 1, English 2, two different papers with 2 different patterns. So it does, grammar and literature of course, so it does become even more difficult. So it's important to score kind of good number. If we really perform well in English, it can actually give a huge boost in our percentage, just like it happened with me. In my 10th I ended up scoring a 98.4 percent, which was also to a great extent driven because of English, because I ended up scoring really nice in English. So I think right now in this particular video, I'm specifically going to be talking about English literature, which is English 2, because we used to call it English 2 anyways. English literature, which consists of course, the drama. And as much as I know, you have the drama Julius Caesar, 9th and 10th, because we used to have Merchant of Venice, so okay. It's a change. And then you have, of course, treasure chest, where we have a collection of stories and poems. So yeah, prose texts and plays and everything we have to study. So the first point that I want to bring into highlight is, it's very important to know the syllabus very well. What has to be done, what does not have to be done. Almost everybody will be telling you, so syllabus, like who does not know the syllabus, so you can do it by yourself. Secondly, I think, coming on to one of the most important points, I think it is to know the difference between translation versus summary. Like, I remember when I was in 9th and 10th, we had Merchant of Venice. I will be taking the example of Merchant of Venice and explain, because I have read that. In 9th and 10th, you can consider Julius Caesar, because that is the play for you, right? So we need to understand the difference between translation and summary, as to bring it into use actually as far as the exam is concerned. So I think most of the people I would see in my class, they would have this book that would just provide them with a summary. They would go on any particular YouTube video, get done with the summary, and they would just understand the meaning. But if you have the translation of each and every line, including the meaning of every word, the different Greek references and so many other references that are given everywhere, I think that is going to help you a lot. Now I'll explain it with an example. Like, I remember in Merchant of Venice, when we had in 9th and 10th, in the, this Act 1, Scene 1, there was this short speech by Antonio. In fact, the entire play had begun with this speech. It went like, "In sooth, I know not why I'm so sad. You say it wearies me, I say it wearies you. But how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff it's made of, whereof it's born, I'm yet to learn. And such a want with sadness makes of me that I'm much ado to know myself." So this was the speech. Going by the summary, it just meant like, Antonio is sad and he does not know the reason for his sadness, and that's what he's discussing with his friends and everything. This was the main thing, the main summary, that he was in a very melancholic mood. Going on with the translation, on the other hand, "In sooth, I know not why I'm so sad." He actually didn't know the reason for his sadness. And you say it wearies me, I say it wearies you. So further it becomes, you say it wearies me. He's talking to his other friends, Salarino, everybody, Cresciano, whoever is present in the scene. And he's like, you say that because of my sadness, it is troubling you. But I say, because it is troubling you, it is troubling me. But how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff it's made of, whereof it's born, I'm yet to learn. So he's saying, but I don't know where I came across the sadness, why I'm so sad, what is the reason for my sadness, how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff it's made of, whereof it's born, I'm yet to learn. So he says, I'm yet to discover what was the actual reason behind my sadness. So everything, like a proper translation. um, that I'm much ado to know myself. So he's like, even so basically what I mean to say is you should have the translation of every line, every word, rather than just knowing कि, "अरे, Antonio is sad and he's in a melancholic mood." So this is the difference. So another example that I can take to actually explain what I mean to say is somewhere, in some scene we had this thing. It was actually a very long speech where in the end, Portia used to say to, Portia was saying this to Bassanio, that one half of me is yours, the other half yours. Mine own, I would say, but if mine, then yours. So all yours. So basically, the meaning of these lines were, these are just few lines from a very long speech of Portia, I remember. And I had actually memorized the whole speech, but this is what I remember right now. So, she was actually saying that one of me, she was just saying that, she loves Bassanio a lot and she belongs to Bassanio. But actually, if we go by the translation, you will find the difference. It goes like, one half of me is yours, the other half yours. So Portia says that, out of the whole of, like the whole I am, one half of me is yours and the other half is mine. Mine own, I would say, but if mine, then yours. So all yours. So she says that, one half of me is yours and the other half belongs to me. But whatever belongs to me that also belongs to you. So I'm wholly yours. So basically, हम आधे तुम्हारे, like मैं आधी तुम्हारी हूँ और अपनी आधी मेरी हूँ, बट जो मेरा है वो तुम्हारा है, इसलिए जो आधा जो मेरा था वो भी तुम्हारा है, इसलिए हम पूरे तुम्हारे हैं. Like मैं पूरी तुम्हारी हूँ. Sorry for the है, हम and मैं, because where the place where I live, we have the hum, like we use hum for me. Anyways, we're going into very much depth. But what I mean to say is you need to have the translation of every line. Another example I could give is, we had this speech where Shylock would just go like, to bait fish with all, if it feeds nothing else, it will feed my revenge. So what he meant was, I actually want the pound of flesh because if it's good for nothing, I'll be using it to bait fish. That means I'll be using it to catch fish. So you shouldn't just have the whole context and summary, but the explanation of every line, the context behind every word that gets used. It's very, very important to have the translation. Let me tell you, in the end of the year, like before, like 1-2 months before my votes, for the rest of the scenes when I was not really able to interpret because everything is given in the Elizabethan English. So somehow, by chance, if you happen to miss your school, if you happen to not have the translation book or anything like that, it becomes difficult for us to understand. And on YouTube, at most of the places, you are just given the summary. So I don't, like in my time, we didn't really have very good channels that would actually provide us with the explanation and translation at the same time, giving us the meaning of all the Greek references, every single thing. Like in our time also, like in Act 3, there were so many Greek references, Cupid and like what not, the sheep and everything. I exactly don't remember everything. So it was like you need to know every single thing, like the entire story behind it, every single thing, with the explanation, and especially with the keywords, of course, you cannot forget that. So the first step is to actually have the translation. You can just get a book which is available, which actually, I used to read line by line, whatever it would mean from the actual Merchant of Venice in the Shakespearean language. And then on the other hand, I would keep another book that would give me the translation of every line. And I would just read one line, then one line. And I would understand that. Most of the times, I would just get very amazing explanation by the teachers in my school. So that would help me a lot. So this is the first step that can help you out. I hope I explained it better. Because most of the other people I had seen in my class were just not following it. They were just sticking by the definition. They were just sticking by the summary. The second point being the quotations. The second point being the quotations. Now, when I was in 10th and 9th itself, I most of the times would consider memorizing, like firstly I'm talking about the play part, okay, after which I'll come to poems and stories also. So, when I was in 9th and 10th, especially in 9th, initially my plan was to learn, basically rot learn the whole particular book. Whole book, and whatever question will come, I'll actually just quote and get the marks. So I literally tried learning the whole book. Of course, by 10th, I just had forgotten everything, so which was not initially possible. So ultimately, I would make sure that even if I'm not learning the whole book or the whole play, at least I'm very well aware of. In fact, I have properly memorized and properly learned the speeches which were very important. For example, we had a Shylock speech, just what I used to give example right now, to bait fish with all and all those things, all those speeches. I still remember those speeches, that no matter whatever question comes, I will quote it. And let me tell you, most of the people who are not able to score well is because they don't quote. So this was very properly discussed in my school, the importance of quotations. In fact, because of which my elder sister herself was able to score 100 also. So I think quotations are really important. Please don't forget to quote. It's not mandatory for all of you to learn the whole speech, learn the whole book. I think you have Julius Caesar, right? It's not really mandatory, but the important scenes, you will definitely have some important scenes, and especially the backstabbing scene and so many other things spoken by which really have a lot of significance. You should definitely learn that. And I think those scenes, your teacher themselves will point out what has to be learned. So, what I mean to say is quotations become really important, and you do get a lot of marks in quotations. Because in my board exam, actually, more than actually explaining things, than what was required, I would actually end up quoting, because of which I ended up getting absolute full marks. And this is what I used both, also in poems and stories. So quotations play a very important role. Um Coming on to the next point. So this I've already covered, quotations, learning. Next, the content. Where actually to consume the content. Some of you go to school, like in fact all of you go to school. I don't think in 9th 10th में कोई नॉन स्कूलिंग होता है generally. तो वहाँ पे you know you need to actually consume the right content, because in my school we were given really nice content. When I say content, really nice explanation and whole package. So if this is something that happens in your school, well and good. If not, because of any reason, if you have to come on YouTube, let me tell you, not a lot of channels are there on YouTube like compared to the CBSE and other boards. Not a lot of channels are there which can actually provide you with the proper explanations. And just as I stated, more than summary, you need translations. For that, you need to have really nice channels in your hand that can give you crisp explanations. And I do have some channels in my head that I can of course prescribe you, because I myself had used those channels. Now when you consume content, also content in the sense when you are also listening the explanation and taking in the summary and initially for the very first time understanding the chapter, let me tell you, please consume it in English. Listen to the explanation in English, because it will develop that sense of thinking that actually has to be required while you are giving the examinations. And I think one of the biggest benefits for me in both 10th 12th English, in any subject, was the fact that as much as possible I would consume the content in English, and especially the explanations given, especially for the explanations for Merchant of Venice. So yeah, there were Hindi explanations available, but I would myself choose to go by the English explanations, because I think you yourself will be able to figure out the difference between consuming things in English itself, because ultimately that'll give you, it will help you all like have a proper sense of being able to write things, to interpret things, to every you start thinking in English that wise. So if you're somebody who's really looking forward to scoring good marks and who's not done this before, that means consuming the content or explanations in English, please do that. If you're watching videos on YouTube or anywhere like that, I think you can use this for other subjects also. Please start doing that in English. Start taking the explanations itself in English. It'll give you and you can yourself figure out the change later on. Next, like description. Yes, now this becomes important point, because if sometimes I think I'm particularly pointing out this point, sometimes the questions would be asked like who said to whom. There we would randomly write Portia said this to Nerissa, or Graciano said this to Lorenzo, whatever it is. We would actually end up losing marks. To be on a safer side, whenever you are doing any question where a particular reference has to be given to a particular character, please give a little bit of description. For example, if there's a scene, also please give the description according to the context of the scene and what is importance and significance of that character in that particular scene. For example, if there's a scene where Shylock spoke something to Antonio, so if you would simply write here, these lines were spoken by Shylock to Antonio. We never got marks in school because we were supposed to give the description. Shylock, who was blah blah blah, spoke these lines to Antonio, who was blah blah blah. Now when I say blah blah blah, it's not just the description of that particular character. It was not just the description of that particular character, but also it included the description with respect to that, or let's say with respect to the context of the significance of that character in that particular scene. So you can do that. I think that would, ultimately help us get a lot of marks. So that was also one of the points that I was missing out in school, which I had learned until my pre-boards. Anyways, so I think complete your syllabus as soon as possible, after which you can go on to PYQs and you can go on to practicing different things. But firstly, please refer to the actual text without initially moving on to the summary. It's okay to know what, before you read, it's okay to know what the content is, but at the same time, follow the translation tip very well, because that's primarily what I had done. And the quotations, well, I think you can quote a lot. And don't rush, everywhere a lot of information will be available. Ki do this, do that, ye sab karo, wo karo, falana dhamkana. Just don't listen to it. Make your own plan, and let me tell you, you'll be able to score really nice in English too, because it's not that tough. And zindagi mein aage, it also gives you an edge to flaunt it, which is good for nothing. क्योंकि जेई बर्बाद करने के बाद दिस इज़ ऑल आई कैन से। एनीवेज ये सब नहीं बोलते। तो या दिस इज़ इट फॉर दिस वीडियो, दैट्स इट फॉर दिस वीडियो। This was all I had to say. Basically, these were the main points that I had to cover. Um, Still, I do have a lot of other points. Now, coming on to the poem wala portion. Like, some people pronounce it as poem, some people are like poems, some people like poem, who cares, whatever. So however you pronounce it, whatever poems you have, this quotation wala thing, I had like, as much as my particular board examination of literature is concerned, I don't exactly remember the portions where I was needed to explain anything, because at most of the places I would just end up quoting. So even if it is your poem wala portion, please learn your poems also, because once, like, right now you might not be really realize because right now you might not actually be realizing the importance to it, but once you start solving the questions, once you start going through everything, and once you start giving exams in your schools also, you'll realize ki if you quote even the poems, lines from the poems, because we have a lot of poems, I know it's lengthy poem, we do have lengthy poems to learn at the same time, it'll help you a lot. Because I think it did take me a very long time, but ultimately by my board examinations, I was ready, properly learned, and I properly memorized almost all my poems. So mostly I would first, if I start writing the answer, I would start by quotations where required. अब ऐसा नहीं कि कहीं भी कुछ भी पूछा quotations मारो, नहीं, वो नहीं करना है. मतलब wherever required and wherever you think it does have a chance to actually, you can just quote lines from the poems, and then further on you can go on answering the question. So that can help you a lot, and I used to do this even in my stories. बहुत सारे stories we had, so it will help you a lot. So this was the biggest tip that I had to give, even for poems and stories. I hope I've covered most of the points, and that's it for this video. If it really helped you, do let me know. Comment below कि अरे did it really help you or not, because इतना time लगा के I'm actually making the video, and everybody in my home is thinking I'm पागल जो कैमरा के सामने बैठ के कुछ भी बकवास कर रही है. But it's not बकवास. I can understand कि अभी कितने सारे stressed people are there. So anyways, if you like this video, yeah, do let me know and share it with your other friends if you want to help them, which most probably you will not be wanting. Anyways, I'll be back next week, maybe with another video. Till then, goodbye and take care.